Thank you, Ivy, for having this conversation with me today. We're sitting here in this beautiful autumn day in Grass Valley, California, whereby now, if it were normal times, it would probably be raining, or we'd see the start of the rains. But nothing is normal these days. And one of the topics that I have been focusing on, because things are no longer normal on this planet, because we're all in such a state of fear, anger, despair, grief regarding what's happening to our planet. I've been focusing a lot on one of those emotions, grief. I'm finding that grief is a complicated emotion, but oh so natural to us. I have been facilitating in recent months grief weekends where people have an opportunity to come together and really understand what grief is, and then have permission to experience it and to be supported with each other in doing so. You know, it's strange, I think, that we have to have in this culture such places where we can actually have a grief weekend, and where we can tell people, your grief is welcome here. Because in many indigenous cultures, perhaps even most indigenous cultures, grief is a very natural emotion, and people know really from birth how to deal with it. We don't. Now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote about the stages of grief, and it's important to understand that she did not intend for those stages to be written in stone. They're very fluid, and they're not something that we go through in a linear fashion at all. In fact, sometimes we go through all of the stages within the span of an hour. Dare I say, even within the span of a few minutes. And so when somebody says, I'm in such and such a stage now, I take that pretty lightly, because in 2 minutes later, you may be in another stage. I don't consider the term fuck it to be a stage of grief. I consider it probably to be an expression of anger. But grief is much more fluid than that. And for me, grief is an ongoing process. And I celebrate that it's an ongoing process. I have no interest in recovering from it, or fixing it, or making it go away because I should be done with it. But rather, grief is a doorway to deeper and deeper knowledge of myself, and it is a doorway to end the separation that we all have been programmed with in this culture. Separation from the earth, from each other, and from ourselves. The very best way I know to begin the process of union is through grief work. And so that's much of my focus these days. The paradox that we have never understood in this culture is that if you go deeply into the grief and allow it to be a doorway, you are sure to experience more joy. When I have done grief workshops in the past, people have expressed at the end of the weekend that they feel much lighter, they have slept better the night before. Some people have even said, I see colors more vibrantly than I've ever seen them. And certainly doing grief work makes us more alive. And the real paradox is that it takes us deeper into the emotion of joy, which is one of those emotions I didn't mention a while ago on purpose, because grief and joy travel together. The poet Mary Oliver said, grief and joy. Grief and joy, what a time these two have, housed as they are in the same body. So we carry grief in one hand, joy in the other. Grief in one hand, gratitude in the other. In recent workshops that I've been doing, I ask people to name not only their grief, but their gratitude. So I am very grateful to be able to talk about grief today, more grateful to be able to experience it and share it with others, and very grateful to you, Ivy, for this opportunity to sit here on this beautiful day and share these thoughts.